Hello folks, Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com and we'll take a look at them after round one. So, Alex Fierro from my Discord wanted to see some Tryhard D&T content, and that's what we're going to do today. The list here is my design, but it's based very heavily off of Static Gripped, aka David Lance's deck list that he's been working with recently. I'm going to kind of take it that my audience as a whole is familiar with Death and Taxes, but the Red Splash is something that has gone in and out of popularity over the years. It used to be that the Red Splash played Pia and Kira Nalar. Wait, Piran and Kia Nalar? P and K. P and K. Pia and Kira Nalar. That one sounds right. And it creates a couple of Thopters when it enters play, so you could bounce it with Caracas to protect it and keep growing a mini army, and that's how you dealt with control. These days, we're looking to play red for two things. Number one is Magus of the Moon. In an Urza Saga metagame, where playing a Magus of the Moon just destroys an Urza Saga or keeps it from ever happening, this is a very valuable tool to have in the toolkit. Number two, there's a decent amount of depths decks floating around where having Magus of the Moon alongside all of the normal removal that you're playing in this deck just means that deck is going to have a really bad time trying to go and finish you off, and some of their utility lands don't do nearly as much. But more importantly, this deck gets to play Red Elemental Blast in the sideboard as a 1-mana removal spell for things like, you guessed it, Murktide Regent. And it also serves as a counterspell for Expressive Iteration, which can also be pretty important. Generally speaking, the Yorion Death and Taxes lists are playing a 14-card sideboard for unfair decks. And those cards have some overlap elsewhere, but the general idea is that you're strong enough versus fair stuff with access to all of your endgame utility and cards like Yorion, just chilling in the companion zone over here, that you just want to patch up your game one weakness to combo decks by kind of overcompensating for it within the sideboard. So imagine you're playing against a blue combo deck, like say Show and Tell, having access to all of these blasts is very, very good. And while you won't necessarily just board in 5 blasts versus say a fair control deck of some kind, to have the option to do that versus something like Delver, where you just want a much higher density of removal spells, is pretty valuable. Other than that, I don't have too much to say about the sideboard. I'm a little unsure on how many copies of the same effect do you want versus differentiating what you have so that you have some differences in what hate is required to beat the thing that you have. So, for example, a Serenity beats a Grafdigger's Cage, but it doesn't beat a Surgical Extraction, right? There's scenarios like that where having these slightly different overlapping pieces of hate is useful, and then there's times where, you're on the draw versus Reanimator, and it's Surgical or Bust. So, I'm a little unsure about some of that. One notable exclusion here is that I am not playing Hammer Mage, which is a tutorable creature that allows you to discard a card to nuke some artifacts. I think that is a very powerful card, but online I just wanted to tilt my needle ever so slightly more in the direction of Graveyard Hate. Another notable inclusion is I cut Sanctum Prelate from the deck list. Just not overly into that card right now. Historically against blue decks, you put it on 1, but that card has gotten a lot worse since the printing of Prismatic Ending and removal being at varied costs. And I also think if I am going to plan on bringing in a whole bunch of my own 1-drops, setting Sanctum Prelate on 1 is a lot less attractive now. And I put in an extra Skyclave Apparition into the deck list in respect of Minsc and Boo, which is kind of everywhere right now. I think with that being said, I am ready to more or less roll into some games here. Let's see how this version of D&T feels, and if I do particularly well, there's a bounty on the line for me. So fingers crossed for the old 5-0. If you're new here and you like what you see, please consider subscribing to see more sweet legacy content. And if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It's the easiest way to support my content for free. Let's battle. Okay, I have a pretty solid and flexible hand here. I have an early removal spell if I need it. I have a Hate Bear, I have an Aether Vial that can kind of be a distraction, and I have 2 basic lands if I want in regards to Magus of the Moon. Although admittedly, one of those might need to be a basic mountain if I want double basics. We'll maybe hope to be able to get plateau with this depending on what the matchup looks like. My opponent has mulligan to 5, which probably means that if I get a turn 2, this Thalia is going to be pretty good. Okay, my opponent tanked for a very long time before keeping their hand. Okay. Understandably... Okay. So, again, if I make it to my turn 2, this Thalia is going to be good. We're probably playing against some sort of, like, oops, all spells type deck. That's like 1 mana away from going off. Okay. Reanimator seems to be the thing that's happening here. That is targeting me. Okay, so, like, Grief always targets me, right? It's not like Unmask, which can target my opponent. I have very understandably lost the Thalia that was about to be cripplingly good versus my opponent. File goes up. I drew a Mom. I don't think I'm interested in casting anything right now. Don't even know that I am interested in casting Cathar Commando to put a 3-1 in play. I might need to hold a white card in my hand for Solitude-based reasons. Although I can make that decision in a minute. Okay, so I'm putting Mother of Runes in play. Do I cast Cathar Commando? It feels like lowering my opponent's life total is probably a good thing. And there's a lot of worlds where I can just put the Yorion in my hand to be the white card that I need. And I think I'm just into this. I think this is just get my opponent dead ASAP territory. So they're down to 16, facing a pretty respectable clock. I've made it much harder for them to get black mana, although I've made it easier for them to get red mana for Faithless Looting. Dealing game 1 against Reanimator is pretty huge. Shutting off my own Karakas is a little bit awkward, but with, like, double Magus of the Moon as the things that are in my hand, like, it's happening. I am notably good versus versus Animate Dead. Alright, cool. I'm just gonna go ahead and get in there, make Reanimate even worse than it was a second ago. And I'm just going to continue to put pressure in play. Now I have a pitch card for Solitude. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. End of turn Skyclave Apparition is just lethal if my opponent doesn't hit anything here. Yeah, I don't know exactly what my opponent's keep was like. It did not work out well for them here. Yeah, yep. Alright, good stuff. Time to board in most of the sideboard. Mindbreak Trap is medium, but probably good enough, especially on the draw. Cages, Surgicals, Containment Priest are great. Peacekeeper is reasonable if we do make it to the mid-game. And Deafening Silence, while less exciting on the draw, is still probably worth playing. From here, I've got a decent amount of stuff that I can cut. I'm not super interested in Jitte. Cathar Commando isn't exactly great, but it's something that can blow up a Serenity if that's a thing that I end up caring about. Same is kind of true for Skyclave Apparition. Not really interested in plane cycling Timeless Dragon and giving my opponent a very good reanimation target. I probably cut those. Mom's medium, but with, like, Containment Priest, Peacekeeper, and Lion Sash, I probably keep her. Flicker Wisp doesn't have great targets. I'll probably keep one in the deck because, you know, it's Flicker Wisp and it works well with Yorion. I'm not overly excited about Wisp. Not overly excited about Stoneforges. Like, Stoneforge Cauldron is nice. How do I feel about Magus? Magus on the draw is probably completely unreasonable, and this also shuts off my Caracas. Let's get those out. Probably don't need 4 Skyclave Apparitions. That's a card that I'm not overly excited about. Again, might want access to it. Probably keep the Stoneforges in these numbers. Keep the second piece of equipment in case one of my first ones gets discarded. Brims some Flicker Wisps. Not sure on ratio of like Flicker Wisps to Skyclaves. Skyclave is better versus played out like artifact mana. Flicker Wisp is better because it can hit lands. Either way, if I'm getting to the point where those cards are relevant, things have gone pretty well for me in the early turns. Okay, I've got a Surgical and a Deafening Silence, and it's probably going to be a keep. My mid-game here is not the most exciting. Again, Flicker Wisp is not a card I'm too terribly thrilled to have. My opponent has Mulligan. I'll keep mine. Alright, and my opponent has kept their 6. Okay, the Grief gets to take my Surgical. So, if they've got it all from here on 6, like, so be it. But it would need to be, like, Land, Dark Ritual, Entomb, Reanimate. Like, they've got 4 cards left in hand. It pretty much has to be perfects. Okay, sure. Alright. They're getting bad lands. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I expected that to be. And the Grizzlebrand is in the yard. I believe I'm going to go ahead and play Deafening Silence here, so that it becomes harder for my opponent to play multiple spells if they do Grizzlebrand, and if they don't play multiple spells, I can probably Swords to Plowshares the Grizzlebrand out of the way. That's not exactly a feel-good situation or anything, but what I'm working with. Yes. This is not the best for me. We'll see how deep my opponent is willing to go. They can't play more spells here, so I don't know that they really want to draw their other 7 cards right now. Deafening Silence is a thing, but I was proven wrong. Okay, I mean, Grief is still a thing, right? More than 1 non-creature spell each turn. This makes it less awkward for me that I don't have white for double Swords to Plowshares on my turn. Okay. That is their 3rd Grief of the game, which is admittedly awkward for me. Let's just rip a Caracas off the top. Let's do it. Skyclave's not bad if I hit a white source next turn, and I still have all these cards in my hand. Which is maybe asking for too much, but what I'm working with. Now notably, the Grizzlebrand being 6 power versus 7 power is kind of a big deal, because it is a difference of 1 turn clock. 7, 14, 21 versus like 6, 12, 18, 24. I don't know, we've got, I don't know, something like 28 white sources. I don't know the exact white source count off the top of my head. The hit to cast a Skyclave. My opponent has very, very good cards in the graveyard right now, notably. And in case you didn't pick up on it, the Scrubland is indicative that Deafening Silence is a thing that I have to worry about. Life's not great now. Okay. Good news is that's a white source. That allows me to exile the Animate Dead. Bad news is Archon of Cruelty fucks. Like, this card is extremely potent. It hits so hard and is immediately going to give my opponent another body. And I've already discarded 2 Swords to Plowshares because my opponent had triple Grief. So I think even if I rip an Answer to Archon, I still just die to this Illusion token, which isn't the best. Oh, okay, they just have another Animate Dead. Okay, at that point, I believe I am on no outs, and we'll just concede. Alright, on the play, Skyclave becomes a little bit more reasonable, I think. I think I'm going to do a flip-flop of numbers like that for this, and probably call that good. Okay. Okay. I'm being tested. Serenity fucks me up, but I think I keep this. Like, Grafdigger's Cage on the play into Aether Vial and potentially also Wasteland my opponent is a very strong opening. I don't think I am in the position to, like, play out the Aether Vial on turn 1. I think that's just, like, way too risky. And there's also worlds where my opponent just, like, uses a Thoughtseize effect to take this Aether Vial, and then we have an awkward staring contest for a little while. My opponent's gonna hard discard a creature here. Man, I really would have loved a white source here. It is what it is. Ripping a white source is incredibly strong for me, because my opponent has to get 3 mana to Serenity, and it's going to be really hard to get to 3 mana if I have Thalia plus double Wasteland. Now, they can just, like, Lotus Petal land Serenity this turn, and I'll die, but I feel like that already would have happened if my opponent could have done it. Unmask, target me? Alright, my Thalia, as predicted, has gone away. And now we're in the awkward chilling zone where neither of us is doing something particularly good right now. And even if I get this Stoneforge in play, I don't have the white mana to activate. So that's a thing. But I have a lot of hate cards of various natures. Yes! That I can draw. I boarded out Jitte, right? Yes, I boarded out Jitte. In which case, I'll just pass the turn here. I can do everything that I need to do at instant speed. And we stare at each other. Very nice that my opponent doesn't know about this surgical. And now we're in a different position from last game, where, like, in a lot of worlds, a Flicker Wisp is better than a Skyclave right now. Okay. That's fine. This is still fine. Where on Grafdigger's Cage has occurred. Ho 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 ho! This is pretty damn good for me, unless my opponent also has another Exhume. Or sorry, another Entomb. So I'll take these out. Alright. Archon goes bye-bye. Wow, 3 Archons. Those all go bye-bye. Anything I need to worry about? Okay, opponent has 2 more Wear Terrors, a Sarah's Emissary, a lot of other stuff that I don't care about. This is all okay with me now. I will take my Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Now my opponent can't cast a Faithless Looting, even if they wanted to. At end of turn, I'll go ahead and put in a Stoneforge Mystic and grab... I've got a Batterskull. I'll just grab the Lion Sash for variety here. I can't activate it yet, which is super awkward, but I can't put in equipment without a white source anyway. I think I'm just going to leave this at 2 to put Lion Sash into play in this turn cycle. I'll go ahead and take out Scrubland now before I do anything else here. And go ahead and bring the beats. Opponent will drop to 17. And while I don't have every possible thing in the world covered here, between, like, Wasteland and this Thalia and the Lion Sash that I am about to have, my options are incredibly strong, especially since Reanimate is the thing that my opponent is working with over there, which is impacted by their life total. Nice. So now Lion Sash is live. I'm just going to attack with Thalia here and miss 1 point of damage this turn so that I can hold up both Lion Sash activation and putting in Batterskull. Okay, sure. Swamp's fine. You may cast your Lotus Petal. I have bad news for you about your Lotus Petal. So I'll go ahead, put in this Batterskull, do the whole living weapon thing. Tap this, yes. Skyclave, Gunk Lotus Petal. Yeah. Okay. Don't have too much to say here. I think the keep was correct. The mid game ended up being awkward, but it didn't matter. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is a deck building website for Magic the Gathering, but they do a lot more than that. In addition to just deck building, you can also use it as a collection tracker. keeping track of what versions of cards you own, their condition, language, and even price, although that can sometimes be a little bit scary. So if you're looking for a website that can kind of do it all at once, please consider checking out Moxfield. They support my content. Okay, round two, I've got kind of a tough opening hand. I think I'm going to mulligan this one. I'm just kind of talking through the logic here. One land Aether Vial hands got a lot scarier in the post-prismatic ending world, and I think when this is a one land Aether Vial hand where the land is also wastelandable on the draw, there's too many things like prismatic ending, daze, force of will, force of negation, wasteland that end up just making this hand kind of do nothing. And while in a lot of worlds I can play this, rip a land, and then go like Stoneforge, Protected Cauldron, win, I think I'd rather take a lower variance hand. It's kind of an ugly hand. I think it's probably a keep, but it's a lot less sexy than the first hand. My opponent has gone to 5, which makes me nervous. I'm still going to keep this hand given that information. Because, like, there's worlds where my opponent has just had a clunky hand, and worlds where this isn't just, like, my opponent getting to an Oops All Spells kill or something. I think I'm gonna ditch Recruiter here. Like, Recruiter is the right tool for the job, just slowly. And I think I'd rather have Skyclave in hand and Solitude in hand for if I have to address a problem more immediately. Okay, opponent's gone to 4. I'm terrified. Now we're in my opponent is an unfair combo deck for sure territory. We may be in Death and Taxes, Yorion sideboard versus the World hand. I'm very glad that I opted for the Surgical over the Hammer Mage. That's something that Static Grip and I talked about, like, very early on into our conversation. Alright, there's an Archon in there. I can remove that with a Solitude. And I am 100% into destroying that land. So, notable thing here. When my opponent sees that I'm a Yorion deck, like, a good portion of the time they know I'm Death and Taxes. And, like, especially given who I am, and, like, my username's well known enough that, like, if you see me on a Yorion deck, like, it's very, very, very likely to be Taxes. So they know they can just mulligan to a fast hand against me. That is a downside of playing the Yorion deck. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna get some time, but my game 1 options against Reanimator are often short-term blocks rather than, like, long-term I win the game because I have this one card plans. You know, a lot of the Peacekeeper caliber cards, the Containment Priest sort of things are in the sideboard. Okay. Grief is extremely bad for me. That is taking my Solitude, which was my plan for dealing with this Archon. Again, though, opponent has 2 cards right now. Like, they are going to be feeling their mulligan. I think I am supposed to play Arid Mesa here. Yeah. If I rip Magus of the Moon next turn, I want to have fetched for another basic land. Although I guess it doesn't matter if I'm just cycling with Timeless Dragon, huh? Alright, get in there, Mom. Do your 1 point of damage. Not feeling great about my game 1 odds. Alright, looks like we have Weathered the Storm for another turn here. A Plains card. Plane cycle that. I guess I can grab a Plateau now. I shouldn't need triple white through Magus of the Moon. Caracas, not great. Now I'm put in this awkward situation where I can play out Skyclave Apparition as a 2/2 attacker if I want. Or I can hold it for Animate Dead. Probably just need the body. My hand is super bad. I think I want to hide Rishadenport, so I need to play one of these. I think I'll play Caracas. And very, very sadly, play a naked Skyclave Apparition. This is not where I want to be. But hopefully my opponent is in a worse position. I can Eternalize a Timeless Dragon next turn, and at that point I actually have a real clock. We're dodging thus far. Guess I still want to hide Rishadenport. So I'll play Plateau. Eternalize Timeless Dragon. Bash in for 3. Again, stealing game 1s versus Reanimator is super important. Alright, opponent drops to 14. Guess I don't need my own graveyard popped out. Hey, it's a land. Alright, it is the Reanimate, unfortunately. I'll sacrifice a Skyclave. I'll discard, I guess, a Plateau. And got 9 damage to do. It is a little tough with Archon getting into the picture. Not impossible, but a little tough. So I think this looks like this. Give this Pro Black. Oh, please make a play. Two rounds of low Reanimator players in a row is not what I am hoping for when I am recording with a slow deck like Death and Taxes. Alright, opponent goes to 5. Now, go ahead and play a land, play a Mom, 3 mana, put my Yori into hand, and this gives me some game. Yeah, Petal's fine. So when this thing attacks, I can sacrifice my Mom, I can discard a Plains, and take some damage. This does gain some life, which is inconvenient for me. But I drew a Swords, so I think I'm just good. Does mean my whole aggro-based plan looks a lot worse, because I give my opponent a lot of time here. And this Yorion sits in hand for a little bit longer than I would like as well. But you can't have it all. Alright. I believe removing this with Swords to Plowshares is better than trying to just play out Yorion. Alright. Let's tap down that swamp. And at the beginning of combat, I'll go ahead and take out this creature. It notably does go to the exile zone. And my opponent is on a 2-turn clock. And just reanimating something like a Grief is probably not good enough. Possible I'm not supposed to make the Mom attack so that my opponent can't, like, reanimate a Solitude. But, like, with a Yorion in hand, I think I'm just okay. Alright, they're gonna reanimate a Skyclave. Taking out my Mom, that's fine. They are going to 6, which really means 2. So now the question is, like, what am I doing with this Recruiter of the Guard in the meantime? Can Recruiter and play something that is CMC2. Can, like, Recruiter for a Thalia. And Recruiter for a Spirit. I've got Rishadenport. I can also just, like, Recruiter for a Solitude. And then if something slips into play, I've got some, like, degree of protection there. So I guess I couldn't reanimate my Solitude because it's CMC5 and they would have died. That explains the Skyclave line. I can also Recruiter for Flickerwisp. Flickerwisp Skyclave is pretty cute. I think I'm going to grab a Solitude, though. I think I like that line. Although Flickerwisp gets a creature out of play without giving them life. I'll just do Solitude, though. Like, it's something that I can do for free in case I get hit with some discard. Okay. Got a little lucky in some ways that game. Again, it's super huge to win game 1 because then I can punt one of the post-sideboard games and it doesn't really matter. And I don't mean, like, throw away. I mean, I can just lose one for the fact that I am on the draw. So we'll bring in the same cards as last round. I think I went Jitte and the Timeless Dragons out as my starting point. And then some number of, like, the Flickerwisps and the Skyclaves go out. I think I fell on Magus of the Moon being too slow. Probably board out at least one of these, and then I get to decide where I want to fall regarding the other numbers. I think something like this. I need to cut one more. So I'm going to go like 2 Skyclaves, 1 Flickerwisp. Probably. I think I'll keep the Cathar Commando. It's an aggressive early creature, which is not something that I have a lot of. Okay, my hand has a bunch of reasonable Magic the Gathering cards that probably aren't good enough on the draw. Let's mulligan. This is a potent hate card that is too slow for being on the draw with a card that can sometimes be a piece of disruption, but not in a way that wins the game. I think I'm willing to go deeper here. Let's go to 5. I like this as a 5. I'll keep this pitching a Plains and probably another Plains. Ooh, Chancellor of the Annex is very scary. That means my surgical might not do what I want it to. Sure, that's fine. Massacre. Understood. Unmask targeting me. Do not get too surgical here because of the Chancellor trigger. I'm going to just let that resolve. That forces my opponent to take the surgical. Alright, life's bad. I can't really get rid of the Chancellor trigger. And I didn't want to just blow both surgical and Peacekeeper, like trying to get rid of this trigger. I think my opponent just gets this one on the draw here. Like, now this Chancellor effect is in play. It's very good. Lion Sash, you are late. Am I throwing you away? Because otherwise I'm waiting until quite a bit later to cast anything. I think I am willing to throw away Lion Sash, so that if I draw a more relevant 2-drop... Oh, you have to stack that. If I draw a more relevant 2-drop next turn, I can just play that. This isn't that fast of a clock, and on 4 mana I do have Peacekeeper. I expect my opponent to flashback Faithless Looting and look for discard to potentially beat this. Yeah, and this is exactly the sort of thing that I'm talking about, right? So now I can play a Stoneforge Mystic, pay the tax, do this, say yes. I want Caldra. I get attack to 11. I have my opponent on a 4-turn clock. They have me on a similar clock. I'll pick up the Batter Skull for lifelink. My attacks aren't going to matter too much, though. Like, creatures can't attack is the text of Peacekeeper. So my opponent is going to look for discard here. We'll see if they missed or not. Okay, nice. How many of these sorts of things does my opponent have? Because that's very relevant. Alright, I'm going to play post-combat Peacekeeper, I guess. And once I get to the point that I feel like I've locked up the game, I can either sacrifice Peacekeeper or, like, bounce it out of play. I've got options. So Peacekeeper, again, is a symmetrical hate card. This is both sides. So I can't attack either. And I just kind of slow this game to a glacial pace. My opponent's got a couple of Faithless Looting that they can flashback in the meantime. Okay, very glad that I played this out this turn. I don't know which one of these I lose here. I lost the Batter Skull. Source of Plowshares is pretty dope. I will probably use that to get rid of Chancellor of the Annex just to, like, free up my mana. You may flashback your Faithless Looting, absolutely. I don't know how many Massacres my opponent has. That's one of the big things that I potentially need to worry about. Goodbye, Chancellor. I will pay. And now we do this whole Peacekeeper thing for a little while. Cool. I guess I can put a Yorion into my hand. Do I care if I lose that to discard? A little bit? Maybe I don't put that in my hand now. Like, that's just so much time for my opponent to find discard to take it. Your looting is fine. I guess one of the reasons to take it is so that I could, like, junk the Grief, but I don't know that the Grief is worth my Yorion. You can reanimate that, absolutely. Yeah, sure, protection from creatures is fine. Massacre is not fine. Yeah, Massacre is very much not fine. It is a kind of a crazy world that we live in, where my opponent is playing multiple Massacres. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me from the outside. So I need to draw like a Swords to Plowshares. I need to draw a spell-based way of stopping this, or I'm just dead next turn. Which is not great. I am fine just going to 3 to take the marginal thinning here. I think I'm on 3 outs. And play a Yorion and Solitude it to go up to 7 and still die. Unfortunate. Alright, GG. Didn't really expect to win the one on the draw, but usually when it gets to like turn 8, D&T wins those games. Massacre's annoying and my mana base isn't really very suited to playing around it. Oh, also, I don't think I showed off the bottom half of my mana base during the deck tech. I apologize for that. Magus of the Moons and Skyclaves become slightly more attractive on the play. I don't know how much that stuff really matters in the grand scheme of things, though. This is a reasonable hand that lacks any true hate. I think I am just going to mulligan this one. This hand falls into the same camp as the last one, where it's reasonable but has no hate, and I don't think that's strong enough. Especially with my opponent staying on 7 cards. How is this as a 5-card hand? Mom into Thalia into Lion Sash activate. The upside of keeping this hand is that I have 2 relevant turn 2 plays. So if my opponent has kept their hand hoping to 2-turn me with like an Unmask or a Grief or a Thoughtseize on turn 1, taking my relevant turn 2 play, I still have 2 relevant turn 2 plays. I wonder if the keep would actually be this, though, ignoring Mother of Runes, since my opponent is playing a bunch of Massacres. Spiking Surgical is okay. Spiking Grafdigger's Cage is pretty insane. I'm gonna mulligan again. I'm left with a pretty awkward 4. I think I'm keeping on 4 cards. Just going much lower than this is just like really hard to physically win the game. But I think I've lost this one. I don't know that the previous hand wins either. Alright. Damage report. How bad is it? Alright. Unmask me. I lose swords. Alright. I'm about to eat Entomb Reanimate on turn 1, so none of my hands were fast enough. It is what it is. Yeah. Alright, so I'll discard Spirit of the Labyrinth so I can make my next land drop. Dark Commando, you just don't do anything, right? So if I cast you, you get sacrificed. If I keep you in hand, you get discarded. Okay. So I get one more draw step to rip one of my 3 remaining copies of Swords to Plowshares. And it can't be Solitude because I just had to discard my white card. Rough. Good card is good. Sure, that's fine. Alright, I did not rip. I will concede. None of my hands were fast enough and I went to 4 cards. GG's. I am not catching a break in regards to opening hands. This one's going to be an auto mulligan. Alright. This is an acceptable 6-card hand. I'll pitch a Solitude. The hand itself isn't overly exciting, but I have like basics that I can play with for the first few turns. Ooh. Like Swamp. Do I play around like Dark Ritual Opposition Agent by not playing Prismatic Vista? Yes. And I'm doing this because opponents said they were a fan of the channel, and I know what sort of bullshit I do. So I'm just saying, you know what you all are likely to want to do. In before I got into my own hand and they just like fucking wasteland me. Fuck. Why do I talk? Okay, yeah. Alright. Basic planes go. We could be playing against a Pox variant. Underground Sea. Baleful Strix? Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm no longer worrying about Opposition Agent. So let's Prismatic Vista into a Plains and just play out a Thalia here. A little annoying to have my Caracas wastelanded. Like Caracas Thalia, Caracas Yorion is pretty respectable. Esper. Oh. Hold on. So that card just exists. I'm not playing Council's Judgment. Not that's not cool. Opponent said, yes, that's a true name in 2022. I am, in fact, playing a bad deck. Good news, I don't know that I beat TNN. So I'm pausing here to think about whether or not I want to cast a Solitude on a Baleful Strix, because every point of life is super relevant against this true name. I don't think I do. I think I want to like use these as life linkers that allow me to keep parity with true name Nemesis. Drawing this Wasteland's really awkward, because like I want to deny my opponent mana, but I think I need to make every land drop that I possibly can. So I think I'm going to stay on basics here. Play Lion Sash. Call it a turn. Try to stay on the defensive. Or sorry, try to put my opponent's true name on the defensive. Because as soon as these creatures like have to be held back, I can start trying to grind value with my like Yorion type cards. Oh, okay. Message received. They are the beatdown still. Okay. I know what this means, and I'm just unhappy about it. Yeah. So, my opponent can put in a Batterskull and then attach it to true name. Why? Okay. So, do I just toss in the towel now? I think I just toss in the towel now. Like, I can put a Yorion into my hand, double Solitude these, just be left with this stuff on the board. My opponent casts Jitte, true name Jitte, attack, and like, I can pretend that I'm playing a game. But I think between the Jitte and the Batterskull that are there, like, this one has tilted enough in favor of my opponent that I'm going to save my clock for the other games in case things go longer. Alright, get the fuck in here. Cards that answer True Name Nemesis on the stack. I think I gotta do that. It's also possible that Peacekeeper is playable. I also don't know how many red elemental blasts I actually want. I want these Magus of the Moons. Opponent's mana's a little greedy. I want my flyers. I'm probably not gonna like board out something like Timeless Dragon. I think I'm gonna get rid of Lion Sash. I don't think that's gonna be a good mana sink for me against cards like Baleful Strix that like this thing isn't just gonna get in the red zone. If I play Peacekeeper, I need to keep Mother of Runes. It's just awkward because my opponent could be playing Plague Engineer, in which case that is Peacekeeper and Mom and like some of the other Thalia type stuff. If I want to play all the red elemental blasts in the world, I probably board out my Thalias just so it's easier for me to actually leave up this mana, because leaving up 2 mana to try and counter a true name is a real cost. Normally, I just like bring in a couple of Council Judgments and like that's that. This is not something I'm super prepared for. I'll do one more pass through here. I think a lot of the rest of this other stuff is better. 5 blasts is maybe overkill. I'm maybe supposed to play around 3. And then like maybe I bring in the Peacekeeper too. Nope. That one is an We're on a 5. That's tough. Well, this is a keep. My opponent has Prismatic Ending. I really don't want this Aether Vial. I also just like don't super have things to put it in. I think I'm not interested in keeping this card. And then I throw back either one of my lands or the Solitude. Solitude's really important if my opponent has early Stoneforge. I think I have lost this game. I don't know that going to 4 is better. In fact, it is probably worse. I'm gonna take a fucking shot in the dark here and go for this Ponder. Like, my hand's bad. Maybe I, like, keep my opponent off a critical color of mana and then top deck well. Or, like, I get to wasteland them off of some important cards. That's fine. Oh, it's a scrubland. I get to wasteland them off of 2 colors simultaneously. Okay, you take my last relevant card. I'll end of turn fetch a plains here. And Recruiter? I am interested in Recruiter. I am much more interested in destroying my opponent's scrubland, but Recruiter's not bad after that. Like, I can pick up a Flicker Wisp or something and try to start doing something that matters. There's also worlds where I just, like, Magus of the Moon. Alright, your Strix is occurring. Magus is a lot worse if it's telegraphed. I think I'm into just playing the Spirit of the Labyrinth. It's a generically good card. It is, like, making me play off, like, ideal mana usage. But it shuts off a good number of my opponent's cards. I can't really fetch with my Marsh Flats yet in case I get Wastelanded and I need access to red. Hey, exact scenario that I was just talking about. Alright, life's bad. See what we draw. Timeless Dragon. So I think this game's over. I will fetch a Plains. I guess I don't need to do that right now. Or no, I didn't play a land yet. That was just in play. So I guess I will do this now. I'm going to get Plateau to bluff having Red Elemental Blast. And go ahead and crash in. I still think my opponent goes for the equip like 100% of the time. Yeah. Okay. You're one fucking card late. So I will attempt to crash in with Spirit of the Labyrinth. Alright, my opponent is going to just let that go. That's fine. If I do this now, it's Force of Negationable. I think I'm okay with that. I don't want my opponent to be able to just naturally cast Force of Negation. I want them to pitch cast it if they have to do it. Brainstorm's fine. I'm hoping my opponent doesn't just, like, drop, like, a True Name Nemesis. I will just probably concede to that on the spot. I think I have to just, like, Red Elemental Blast the Baleful Strix. I just can't let that accrue counters. But I'll lose to the True Name. Snapcaster Thoughtseize is also pretty insane. Really? I don't think Snapcaster Brainstorm is better than Snapcaster Thoughtseize. But I don't know my opponent's hand, so I might be wrong. Alright, well, I'll cast a Recruiter. I'll use his ability. I'll pick up a Cathar Commando to kill the Jitte. And if that actually works, and I don't need a Thoughtseize or a Force of Will, I can maybe crawl back into this. Alright, sure. I do not like my opponent getting all these looks at cards right now, because they have so many good hits. Like, cantrips are good, forces are good, Thoughtseizes are good. If they have something like him is good. Trix is whatever. Knew that was coming. Alright, I will take the 2. They're not going for the equip. You have Caldra too. Alright, you have Batterskull. Like, I can Cathar Commando the Jitte away. Take 3 in combat. Opponent puts in Batterskull. I'll take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in combat. I think this is far enough gone where I'm willing to concede. Like, I can play this out where I try to, like, Flicker Wisp the Germ token, but my opponent's at re-equip mana. I'm gonna value my time here. GG's opponent. Like, OG Esper Stoneblade. I love it. Okay, I have an awkward hand in that I have a single white source that is wastelandable, but I still think this hand is going to be a keep. I just have to, like, very awkwardly lead on my Singleton Mountain. Alright. Mountain Go. I think that's better than Wasteland Go. It sends more misinformation. Like, Mountain plus Yorion looks weird. And while my opponent might get the read that I'm playing, like, a Singleton Mountain in a red-white D&T deck, like, this is more likely to send a wrong signal than not for the first turn cycle. Okay. Opponent gets to take a peek. I'm probably going to Wasteland my opponent over play Thalia on my turn. Because, like, Wasteland is guaranteed deny 1 mana, whereas Thalia is potentially deny 1 mana. Like, the Thalia can be countered by Daze or Force of Will or whatever, and Wasteland isn't going to get countered. D&T leads on Mountain now. I'm out of the loop. Alright, my opponent did take a Thalia. Ooh, another Wasteland. I still think I'm into this play. My opponent is potentially a Doomsday deck. I think that's more likely than Storm. Oh. Oh, no. I'm fine with playing Plateau. I think I'm fine with playing Plateau. They already know about Plateau. And since this can't be dazed, I'm good with just casting this here. Nice! This is a strong position for me. See what my opponent... Oh, no! It's Reanimator. That extra surgical feeling real good right about now. So I'm going to bash for 2. Puts my opponent to 16. I believe I'm interested in playing out Stoneforge Mystic. The reason being that Kaldra vastly improves my clock, and I don't have a lot of time. I can also just get Lion Sash, actually. Let's get Lion Sash here. Fantastic. So I've got Solitude, Pitch, Lion Sash if my opponent can put it into play this turn, which I don't think they can. And then otherwise I've got Activate Lion Sash with 2 activations available. Oh, that's a very good draw too. The Stoneforge isn't attacking this turn because I do want to do this uncounterably. I think that is very important given board. And unless my opponent randomly fetches here or something, I think I just play Plains so I have more white mana available. And call it a turn. Alright, cool, cool. I think at this point I'm probably winning this game 90+% of the time. Unless my opponent has like main deck show and tells. In which case shit could still get weird. The island is weird. Like that's not super commonly played. Alright, Lion Sash. Target the Archon. I think I am willing to tap the Caracas and not leave up protection from Thalia to just continue to grow the Lion Sash. 3, 4, 5, 6 damage. Assuming Spirit of the Labyrinth resolves, I just have lethal next turn. I think I am going to see if Spirit of the Labyrinth resolves prior to taking any further game actions, though. Fantastic. So all these can go ahead and crash on in. I don't think I am going to eat again with Lion Sash right now. Like, I've still got lethal next turn. Opponent's at 8, which is kind of a magical number when it comes to reanimate specifically. Alright, we took game 1 versus this deck. Basic Island, though. Basic Island. How do you feel about boarding in the entire sideboard, Phil? I'm glad you asked, other Phil. I think I'm into it. I don't know that I'm into Mindbreak Trap specifically, given what I've seen. Like, I don't know how fast my opponent's deck is versus how resilient their deck is designed to be. So I'm unsure on Mindbreak Trap. I might play it anyway. Yeah. I'm just double checking. That Baleful Strix thing was last game, right? Yeah, that Baleful Strix thing was last round. Okay. I am not into Magus. Not into Jete. I'm going down some number of Flicker Wisps and Skyclaves. I probably go down to 1 of each this time around, since I want to bring in some Blasts too. I'll probably board out Timeless Dragons. I don't want to give my opponent targets. And at this point, like, as you can see, the cuts are going to get harder if I want to keep, like, some number of utility creatures in. It's going to be really awkward if my opponent is just, like, a fucking control deck that happens to have a small reanimation package. But I am getting show and tell vibes. What's my cut from here? Am I supposed to go down some number of Aether Vials? Am I supposed to go down some number of Mother of Runes? Am I going to get massacred, literally? Unsure. I'm going to board out Moms until I know what's going on. My creature count is absolutely light here. Ugh, God, that's sexy. Absolute keep. I'm so in for this hand. Alright, my opponent kept their 6. I think I'm just gonna hold Red Elemental, blast up, and just pass the turn. I don't know if that's right, because, like, Aether Vial is better the sooner you put it into play. But if I can play around, like, Lotus Petal Show and Tell, I think I just do so. Entomb is fine. I think I'm fine with my opponent having another draw step here. Because, like, I can fight back versus a piece of counter magic. Yeah, your Bonder's fine. Grizzlebrand's also not the most threatening thing in the world when I have Caracas. Sure. Kinda want a Surgical Grizzlebrand right now. Wow, it can't be Force of Negation. I think I'm into it. And if I have to Pyroblast to protect this, like, I do it, and I don't give up all my mana here. Oh shit, my opponent has Force of Will and did not force? Absolutely. Okay, so what's spicy here? Shallow Grave is what's spicy. Okay, cool. Alright, so I've got a deck list snip if I need it. I don't really expect to need it. Entomb's rough, though. So I don't have any Wasteland sort of cards to worry about. I think I'm just going to play out Caracas and play Aether Vial. I have perfect information about what is in my opponent's hand. Alright, there's an Entomb. There's an Archon. My opponent will fetch and play Exhume. It's just playing out like a wonderful novel that I have constructed. Target Archon. Pay some life. You force a will. I fetch. Opponent said Red Blast too? Yeah, absolutely. Alright. Red Blast the Force of Will. And now my opponent is left with very few threats. Alright. This is fine. I could pitch cast a Solitude and put a Solitude into play right now. Do I want to do that? I don't think I want to do that. I think it's just better to keep this card in hand. My opponent has very few things that matter here. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll just do that now. What a disgusting game. Alright. Yes. A land drop. Go to combat. Crash in for 3. It's all fine. I think I'm just going to go ahead and do this main phase here. Activate this. Yes. Stoneforge. Trigger. Lion Sash. Cast. Graveyard's fully insulated now. Not that my opponent has very many creatures left in their deck. So they have 1 Emrakul the Aeon's Torn and 1 Emrakul the Promised End. So my opponent really needs to assemble like Show and Tell plus creature. And I have a Caracas, which is potentially relevant. It's not relevant if like Omniscience also gets involved, but you can't have it all. Alright, and let's just continue to grow Ye Old Lion Sash, put as much pressure on my opponent's life total as possible. I think I'm ticking this vial up to 5. Oh, that's disgusting as well. We can just do that pre-combat. Eat a Wasteland. That makes casting a Show and Tell significantly harder. Okay, Intuition is fine. This is a weird tutor given that I have Lion Sash. I also can just put Yorion into hands that I have something to pitch to Solitude if I need to. So my opponent can't choose Emrakul and more other Emrakul. Because if they do so, I just give them whatever the other card is. And then I can eat their only 2 remaining creatures. So I think I just give them Shallow Grave here. Show and Tell into Omniscience is, like, if they have Show and Tell as their card in hand, draw an Emrakul, and I give them Omniscience, like, that's scary for me. So I think I'm interested in giving them Shallow Grave. And I'll just go ahead and eat this now. Fine, 4, 7, 8 damage. Lethal next turn. And now that I've sorcery speed eaten something, I don't actually want to put Yorion into my hand so that I don't accidentally lose to, like, Entomb shenanigans. Maybe I wasn't supposed to eat at sorcery speed. Yeah, eating at sorcery speed was probably a mistake. Doesn't matter here, but it was probably a mistake. All right, GG's. What on earth is my record now? We're 2-2. Um, awkward opening hand. I have a good turn 2 play. Double Timeless Dragon is either really good or really bad, depending on the matchup. For example, if we are playing against a randomly chosen deck like Reanimator, just to choose a random legacy deck, this hand is probably unplayable. If I'm playing against a slow blue control deck, multiple Timeless Dragon is good card advantage. I recognize my opponent's name, but I don't know why I recognize their name. They're a Merfolk player. Very consistently. How is my hand versus Merfolk? I have plenty of mana, but no removal spells. Like, this hand is pretty borderline anyway. I think I'm going to look for a more acceptable 6. In a vacuum, this is a much better hand. Like, there's worlds where I'm not playing against Merfolk, where this hand is very strong. I think I'm just going to put back the non-basic land that can be wastelanded. But this isn't super what I want. I just want a fistful of removal spells versus this deck. Luckily... Alright. Okay. I think I'm just going to lead on Plains Go. Probably getting a Plains with Prismatic Vista at some point in this match. But I don't have to make decisions regarding my fetch lands yet until I do actually see what my opponent is playing. It is the Fish People. Oh, shit. Literal misclick. My finger got stuck on my mouse. That's very frustrating. I lose to Merfolk because my finger got stuck on my mouse. YouTube will never let me hear the fucking end of it. Else on 1. That's fine. Okay. Contextually, that's quite bad for me. Let's fetch. Grab a Plains. I think I'm going to take a turn off to Thalia. Like, I know I already took a turn off by misclicking, but I don't want my Stoneforge Mystic, which I need to win this game, to get countered if I can avoid it. The good news is Merfolk is a bad enough deck that, like, I can maybe time walk myself without losing to them. I have a lot of removal in the deck that I can draw. I just don't have any right now. This is, unfortunately, another True Name Nemesis deck. That's uncounterable, which is why my opponent can do that in that fashion. Just in case you're not familiar with that interaction. My Mother of Runes, on the other hand, is not so much uncounterable. So this is the one that's an island. I'm going to go ahead and fetch now. I don't want a wastelandable source this game. This is unfortunately counterable through the Thalia attacks. But I think this is my moment where I just have to go for it. Yeah, so my misclick cost me this Stoneforge Mystic. Which is super frustrating. Now, my opponent has 1 card left, so there's a lot of worlds where I'm just fine. Like, I take a little bit of damage here, and then hope... You're 2/2 Curse Catcher? Oh, right, Island Walk. Okay, sure, never mind. The other creature being able to attack here is kind of rough. Stoneforge is very good. This can't block anyway. I guess I'm getting my beats on with it. Opponent will drop to 17. Still gonna need to, like, top deck another land. Yes. I take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, go to 5. I need to gain life next turn. Probably means grabbing Jitte and just hoping to top deck a land. Awkward if my opponent top decks another Lord. My Jitte would lose a lot of potency if that is the case. Yeah, I will take all of this damage. I guess I could have held Thalia back, because this is other creatures you control have Island Walk. I missed my land drop. I don't get to do my optimal thing this turn. We'll see if they have a counter spell. I'll attempt to take out their Lord. It has happened. Gonna hold everything back here. And we'll see if I can stabilize from here. There's weird things that can happen. Okay. I've stabilized for now. I've missed my land drop. That's fine. I am just gonna put in Jete and attempt to take over the game with it. My opponent could have some Merfolk Trickster type stuff. Yep, there we go. Targeting Thalia. Okay. A Lord gets spooky here. If my opponent tries to push some damage. If they try to push damage and I have something like Batterskull, they can never recover from it. Alright, they are willing to go in. I think I'm willing to trade bodies. This is an awkward trade because my opponent gets a 2-2. So I guess I'll trade. Go to 3. Put in an end of turn Jete. Alright, there is another mana. Which means that I can play another blocker. Cracking the Vista is awkward. Going to 2 when my opponent has multiple 2-2s is like very much a thing. I think I start with a Jete equip. And I think I equip it on Stoneforge. Actually, maybe that's not true. Oh, maybe it is true. Like, I would be perfectly happy trading away this body. Alright, let's swing in with Stoneforge. Otawara. Awkward. So I lose Stoneforge here. Alright. I'm not dead. Everything is, however, awful. Sure. Do this. Play a Spirit of the Labyrinth. I lose to Daze. Yeah, there's no world where I lose this game where I don't time walk myself. Gotta do a top decked Lord. Alright, are you coming in? You are. Oh, get rid of this. Get rid of this. Take 1. This is all fine. True Name is not beatable here. Like, I can play Jete and equip, but... Well, actually, I can't play Jete and equip. Yeah, I lost that one for time walking myself. Because, like, I play a Stoneforge on my turn 2. That's protected. Don't like first Stoneforge that resolves, and then the texture of that game is totally different. I, like, save probably 10 life very easily. And I potentially have a Cauldron in play that just, like, doesn't care about True Name. That is frustrating. Okay, I think in a lot of worlds my opponent boards out Dallas. It's not particularly good against me. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to board these in. I'll have a high density of removal. I don't think I'm super interested in trying to, like, be the Magus of the Moon deck. There's worlds where I want Peacekeeper specifically because your name is hard to deal with. So, like, I'll keep this in mind. I don't know that I'm actually going to play it. Not super interested in Thalia. Those probably go. Like, Thalia is a first striker, and that's cool and all, but especially if I'm trying to hold up Pyroblast to hit a True Name Nemesis on the stack, like, Thalia is not super reasonable. Could play Containment Priest. I think my vials are better than their vials, though. Not sure on this Peacekeeper. Like, Peacekeeper could be the Containment Priest. They're going to find their vials more consistently than I will. Let's call this good. My opponent does have outs to Peacekeeper, like we saw Otawara. How is this hand? This hand loses to Wasteland, and I don't think I'm into it. It has a lot of removal, but it's removal at a high cost. I don't think I like it. I think I keep this one and, excuse me, pitch the Wasteland. Yep. Land go. Play a Stoneforge on turn 2. There's worlds where it gets Cauldron. There's worlds where it gets Jete. Okay, sure. This probably just means that my Stoneforge is getting countered and I don't actually need to think about it. I think I play Rashad Port here. I don't think I'm interested in making the choice for whether or not I need to fetch Plateau or not immediately. Like, I don't want to fetch the Plateau and then get it Wastelanded, and I don't want to fetch Plains and then not have access to red after drawing a red Elemental Blast. That's fine. The hope is that I can get to 5 mana, play a Solitude, and then blink it. Yeah. Play your Lord. Sure, that's fine. Is it as long as it's on the battlefield? Or as long as Tideshaper remains on the battlefield? Yes, that is fine. We'll Swords to Plowshares that. Yeah, I think this go ahead and gets the plateau. It's a little awkward for this turn cycle. Because, like, right now, that's an island. So, let's Source the Plowshares that out of the way. And then I can port down one of my opponent's mana sources. Merfolk Trickster. Oh, it's the Hexcatcher, sure. That card does have Flash. Now, in case you're not familiar with this one, it's counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. I want to red elemental blast that and then port my opponent. I think I'm into that. I don't know that I need to resolve Mother of Runes immediately. Okay, cool. Let's just make it harder for my opponent to cast their spells that matter. Is especially potent if they miss land drops like they are. Oh, that's fantastic. Very happy with that draw. 100% I force a will target if my opponent has one. And they do. Pitching a 2-mana lord that's stuck in their hand. Now, my Rishadan port is only good for so long, right? Like, they will eventually draw 1 more mana source and start deploying their stuff that's stuck in hand. So I would like to build a better board before they start deploying their scary stuff. I'm also going to preemptively fetch here to bluff having another red elemental blast. I just want to plant that false information. Nice, nice. A Ganjo. I think that's better as a land right now. I'm going to go ahead and put the Yorion into my hand, and I don't think I attack with Mom. My opponent's got, like, Merfolk Trickster type cards that I very much do need to respect. Hey, a Merfolk Trickster type card. Alright, I'll give myself Pro Blue. Actually, I think I'll give myself Pro Black for Dismember. Actually, if I give it Pro Black, I'm just about to lose those abilities, so I guess I give it Pro Blue. Fantastic. Do I just keep porting my opponent? With 4 5-drops in hand, I feel like the answer to that question is no. I think this is the point where I just give up that game. Like, if my opponent counters a Solitude, I play another. Silvergill Adept is fine. I think at this moment, I will go ahead and cast one of these before my opponent can draw another card. Get rid of the Trickster. Possible I'm supposed to let the Trickster attack to potentially ambush it in combat, but this feels fine. That's disgusting. Alright. Wasteland your Cavern. Go to combat. Back for 3. You may block. I am fine doing the Pro Blue thing. Take that creature off of the board. I think I'll just port my opponent here. Seems fine. Tap down your Cavern. Got sort of an overwhelming board presence. That makes my port worse. I think that's fine, though. Like, I'm still good with continuing to do it. If I attack with Mom, I don't think I need to attack with Mom. I'm going to crash in with Solitude. Position's great. I'm going to tap down the true blue source over the Cavern of Souls here. Another Vial is fine. The Wasteland is fine. It's a little annoying because, like, I am, like, wanting to use this mana, but I'm very far ahead on board. I'm fine casting this card. Get rid of the Aether Vial with a higher number here. Make sure I'm not going to get ambushed by anything too scary in combat. 6 damage. The 7th damage actually matters here. I'm actually going to take this Mother Runes attack because it might change my clock. Puts my opponent to 12, which means it's a 2-turn clock if I connect with 2 bodies, assuming the Skyclave loses in combat somewhere. At this point, I don't care about getting dismembered because my opponent's life total is just too low. True Name is fine. Like, my Mom lines up very well versus that. Stoneforge does as well. I think I see if Stoneforge... I'm probably doing my attack regardless. But I guess it's free to see if Stoneforge resolves. It does. I'm just going to go ahead and pick up Cauldra here. It has Trample. And I think my opponent's life total is under enough duress that I am fine exposing Stoneforge Mystic to Dismember, again, for reasons that I've already talked about. I am good with my opponent casting a Dismember at this point. Their life total is under so much pressure. Also, since they've used one Otawara already, like, my opponent is not going to have too many things that actually can take my creatures out of play that don't cost them life. Another True Name Nemesis, sure. This soaks up a good amount of damage. Got 5 mana to work with. Assuming I put a Stoneforge Mystic in play and I attack with it, I can Solitude a Lord. So my opponent takes a lot of damage from Kaldra. Lord plus Force plus blue card can be a little annoying, but I think it's ultimately fine. Let's attempt it. Okay, yep, sure. We do have to play a game 3 since I messed up in game 1, though. Do I want some Thalias on the draw, where just having a 2-1 body with First Strike is respectable? I don't think so. It's fine. It's not good. Like, the issue with Thalia is that, like, it doesn't tax my opponent's spells super well, and it gets outclassed later on in the game. I will be keeping this hand. I don't think my opponent can turn 1 Chalice me. Okay. Yeah, so evaluated the hand. I'm gonna keep. Sorry, I took a minute to look at my phone while my opponent was making their mulligan decision. Island pass. That's fine. It will get... Ooh, that's actually a very good draw, because then I can use Prismatic Ending to... Or sorry, Prismatic Vista to get basic Mountain, should I need that. Silvergill Adept or Lord of Atlantis. That's fine. I'll have to decide whether or not I want to Red Elemental Blast in this turn cycle. The answer is probably yes. Like, just use this card as early as I can and assume that my other stuff takes over the game later. I don't have another 2-drop to put in with Stoneforge Mystics, so I think I'm good grabbing my basics here. This will give me Plains, Mountain as basic lands that aren't wastelandable. Alright. I'll respond. Grab the basic Mountain. Attempt to counter Lord of Atlantis. Succeed. And we'll see if my opponent attacks into Mother of Runes. They do, and are not punished for it. Our Aether Vial is fine at this point. I will tick up my own vial. I have some choices now. I want to end of turn Stoneforge, which probably just means that I play Recruiter of the Guard with my mana this turn. I could just Eternalize Timeless Dragon, though. But then I'm fighting for 2 different things here. I think I'm interested in casting Recruiter and, like, grabbing a Flicker Wisp or something. Without sitting here and thinking about it for a long time, like, casting Recruiter seems to be correct. We'll just see if it resolves, and then I can make the choice for what I'm actually getting. I can get, like, a Cathar Commando if I think that Aether Vial is a problem, but I don't. I honestly might just get a Flicker Wisp here. It's flexible. I can use it to mess with the Vial. I can use it to flicker my Recruiter and start a chain. I can use it to reset my equipment if I need to. I can also just, like, get a removal spell, but my deck is pretty dense with removal spells right now. Yeah, that's fine. Your name, not really a big deal. Do you want to trade? I have other stuff I can flicker. Alright, you do not want to trade. End of turn, I'm going to go ahead and put this in. Say yes. Put in a Stoneforge. The True Name makes my choice here a little harder. I can just get Jitte for life gain in the air. Or I can get Batterskull so that, like, the True Name can't really attack. I think I'm going to get Batterskull first. Batterskull on Flicker Wisp is also just a thing that I'm allowed to do. Opponent might have Dismember, given this pause. They do have Dismember. Alright, they've got 1 card left. Yes. Can get another basic here. Let's fetch. Do a Plains. Next turn I can just cast this Batterskull. I can also just get a Peacekeeper and drag this game out for a little while. I think I'm kind of into that. I don't have to make my choice immediately. I can do something like just hardcast the Flicker Wisp, and it's safe since my opponent has 1 card. Flicker my Recruiter. Go to my end step. Do the Recruiter thing. Say yes. I think I just grab another Flicker Wisp and do this immediately, targeting my Recruiter. And then I get something in my opponent's end step 100% of the time. If I need to pump the brakes, I can get Peacekeeper, and if I don't need to pump the brakes and, like, I'm gonna win the race, I can get something else. I think I just trade a body here. This is only punished by, like... I don't know, a double Lord scenario doesn't even punish that. Yeah, so this is fine. Another True Name Nemesis. Yeah, that's kind of scary. Alright, so Recruiter happens. Yes, I think I grab Peacekeeper at this point. Let's put that on the stack. I think I put this into play now. Like, it's a little awkward, I lose some damage, but I think I want this Vial ticking up. Oh, that's really good. That changes my plans. That's really good. Because Peacekeeper, Mother of Runes should be borderline unbeatable. Yeah, that costs you both your Wastelands to do. So I'm fine with that. And just so I can F6 my opponent's turn, I think I'm going to go ahead and just Plane Cycle here. Grab another basic Planes. Call it a turn. This game's going to drag on now. And that's fine. But with Mother of Runes protecting this Peacekeeper, my opponent has to draw like a Dismember this turn. It can't be Otawara. And then after that, I have like Yorion loops going. Yeah, that's fine. Alright. Pay for my stuff. Play a land. 3 mana, Yorion to hand. I'll call it a turn. Second main phase here. I'm going to go ahead and put in my Yorion. Target 2 of my permanents. And now I get to attack, and my opponent doesn't. And I'm safe for Dismember type effects. Alright, so I Flicker Wisp out Peacekeeper, so that my flyers can attack. Yes. I'll just grab another Mother of Runes. Doesn't really matter what I do here. Let's go always no to that. Always yield to that. Yeah. I'll hit my opponent for 7. Oh, sorry, I don't have a Caracas in play. In my head, I thought I had a Caracas. So it did matter what I got. But Mom is still fine. Like, I'm going to win this game. Thinking about it more, I think getting Mom was correct. So that I don't randomly lose to, like, Tide Shaper into Dismember or something. Alright, my opponent takes the damage. Goes to 9. I'll play a Batterskull. And I will play out a second Mom. At end step, I get my Peacekeeper back. And they can do their thing. I'll probably wait 1 turn to go for my all-in attack. At some point, I can just sacrifice Peacekeeper and go for a kill. But I don't really need to do that. Like, if I go for it and it's not safe, yeah, okay. Concession is fine. The good news is we didn't lose to Merfolk. And honestly, in Legacy, that's all that matters. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Pretty good. I was happy with this deck list. Very happy that I played extra Graveyard Hate. I think if I was playing in paper, I would play the Hammer Mage, but like online, there's so many Graveyard focused combo decks just because like they're fast and they're easy to grind leagues with and have a decently high win percentage. I don't know that I'll make any changes before I play this deck again. I will be playing 3 Tryhard leagues with D&T. I'm pretty happy with how the deck felt tonight. I feel like the mana base has the appropriate balance of like utility and colored pips to cast the spell. I like cutting down on the Rishadan ports if you're going to be playing Magus of the Moon. Like, when you start introducing Plateau and such into your mana base, you're going to get Wastelanded more. I don't know if a Ganjo is better than Basic Plains. Like, especially considering you're a Magus of the Moon build. I don't think I'll take it out. I think I'll play more games with it. This is maybe borderline for me. I really liked the the bullets that I had access to in Cathar Commando and Lion Sash. I don't think I tutored up the Cathar Commando, or if I did, maybe once, but like Lion Sash was really good, and I know I talked about Cathar Commando lines. Peacekeeper in the sideboard was clutch, because apparently 2022 is the year True Name Nemesis is throwing it back and just like getting on the Legacy dance floor and boogieing. So that was kind of a strange league in that regard. But I had a lot of fun playing this. Although, holy moly, League was a bit of a grind in terms of time it took to record. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out if you have any thoughts about the deck list. And today I would particularly love to hear those because I will be playing this deck list again. I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!